In order to make sure that my client Amy receives all the benefits that I may offer to her as a wellness coach, I have to make sure that I am fully committed to motivating her to better herself, both physically and mentally. So she's disclosed to me that she has the problem of relapsing and of self doubt and not enough self confidence to continue when she does start a program or a meal plan or something like that. Um, so she thinks that facilitators may be things like her social environment and her motivation, and then at the same time, her barriers are her motivation and her environment. Because in a way they help her, and then in another way she has a lack of equipment and a full-time job, and that does not motivate her because she's always tired. Um, so, due to these barriers and facilitators, I decided to base her information and use the social cognitive theory. So I did not choose the trans theoretical model of change because Amy has already went through most of this in the past, and we know that right now she's in the action state, and she as she went through this in the past, she got to the point where she did not feel like it fulfilled her enough to change her behavior, and she relapsed. So I thought that I would include the more important things to her, such as her environment and her social life. Um, so the social cognitive theory is composed of reciprocal determinism, behavioral capability, observational learning, reinforcement, expectations, and self-efficacy. So reciprocal determinism basically just refers to a reciprocal reaction between Amy and her environment and her behavior. So in this situation, we begin to identify the less healthy behaviors that are usually resorted to, and then we acknowledge how that triggers her and how she may reciprocate her environment's triggers, and how her environment or the people in her life or her job or anything may reciprocate to her behavior. So through that, that gives us an idea of what the issue is and what behaviors we may need to start developing or need to change. Behavioral capability, which is the second one, is basically her ability to perform a behavior through her knowledge and her skills. Um, so basically, she needs the essential knowledge, which I may give her, um, in order to create better behavioral patterns that make her closer to her goal. So we need to learn to relearn behavior and how it affects her and her environment, and um, help her feel confident in being capable of learning new behaviors. Three is observational learning. Observational learning just means that an behavior may be modeled for her, and she can learn that behavior through seeing that that behavior has a consequence that is positive and that it may be carried out successfully. And so she may want to try that behavior, and through that, she learns from others and may be able to change her own behaviors and get closer to her goals and understand why she has certain behaviors and what she wants to change through seeing them through me or others or on the internet or whatever it may be. Number four is reinforcements. So these may be positive or negative. I'm just going to give a brief example, which could be that if she gets closer to her goal, I may give her verbal affirmation, or vice versa. If she, binge eats or doesn't do her workout, there may be a negative consequence, both in the way she feels and the way that we communicate. Um, Five is expectations. So this just means that she has an anticipated consequence for her behavior, and the more that she repeatedly does that behavior, the more she's going to expect to have that consequence. So if she has a positive consequence from a behavior that we develop together, she may continue to act or perform that behavior, whereas if she continuously gets negative consequences, she may want to stray away from that. Six is self-efficacy. One's self-efficacy is influenced by themselves and their environment, as I said earlier. So Amy's issue with self-efficacy comes from herself. So we know that she's surrounded with supportive and helpful people, though she doesn't have equipment. So we just want to find ways to help her believe in herself and really reduce her chances of relapse. Um, So the cognitive strategies that I plan on implementing are based off of the cognitive behavioral therapy. So cognitive behavioral therapy basically just looks into the way that an individual thinks of themselves, of their environment, of their social life, and then it also uses their behaviors. So basically, what they act comes from what they think, and what they think comes from what they act. So the goal is to change behavior through understanding one's cognition, and really helping the individual to understand their own cognition as well. So the strategies, a few of the strategies that um, I included were goal setting, self-monitoring, reinforcement, stress management, and improving self-efficacy. So for goal setting, this helps us because we understand what her cognition is initially, and it helps us see what her negative behaviors are currently, and helps us create realistic and timely and sustainable goals. So this is an initial motivator for her because she already knows that she is changing behaviors and that she may in the future even improve that. Um, the second one is self-monitoring. So this helps whether, um, so an example could be self-monitoring through the way she's eating or how many workouts she's doing a week and if she's keeping up with her program. Um, and the goal of this is not to be obsessive. The goal of this is really just to see how she's doing within herself, how it makes her feel, how it makes her think about herself, how it changes her behaviors, and she may really enjoy the process and she may associate her behavior, her behavior which is changing with feeling better. So that'll be a more consistent change and a more consistent and sustainable goal. Um, Number three is reinforcement. So as I said earlier, this may be positive or negative, environmental or within, but basically it is just something that motivates you when you do something right or wrong. Um, Next is stress management. So stress management can be both cognitive as well as behavioral. So in the cognitive case, stress management is really just um, it aims to get her closer to the mindset that stress will help her grow closer to her goals instead of stress being her enemy. So it'll teach her when she needs to rest and when she needs to really push herself, and that'll kind of give her a better idea of what behaviors are good and what behaviors are bad, because sometimes persistence may be detrimental and she may need to learn to rest or she may need to learn to push herself more. Um, and then last is improving self-efficacy. So sometimes that can come solely from, the process of losing weight or of getting closer to your goals and seeing yourself make those improvements. And that is completely fine. But sometimes that isn't enough for someone because it may be cognitive. So I want to really get her towards the steps of feeling more self confident solely because she is taking the steps to better herself, and that she is really just strong enough to take these steps and to change her behaviors and acknowledge what her current state is. Um, the behavioral strategies that I plan to implement are also based off of the cognitive behavioral therapy. So, some of these strategies that I've included are making changes in diet. So, for example, swapping foods for other foods or tracking her calorie intake, her caloric intake, sorry. Um, there's also making changes in verbal communication towards herself and others. Coping with relapse, which is similar to making changes in diet and stuff like that. Um, Small changes to increase physical activity and maintenance of all of this behavior. So, maintenance applies to both cognitive and behavioral, but I put it in behavioral strategies just because it really comes more through the behavior and the things you do than the things you think. Um, so making changes in diet should be long term and sustainable. So I'm not going to give her anything crazy. I'm just going to make sure she knows how many calories she's taking in, how much she's expending. It doesn't need to be strictly how much she's expending, but she does not need to track her calories forever even, but I want to give her a general idea of what is healthy when it comes to caloric intake and weight loss, and what is really achievable and what will get her closer to her goal of weight loss. And considering that when she loses as much weight as she wants, we may go back to maintenance. Um, so she disclosed to me as well that she has problems with binge eating sometimes, whereas other times she just doesn't eat. So I think our behavioral goal will be able to be calm when overeating occurs, like drinking more water, staying calm, telling yourself it's okay, and then really not depriving yourself of food when you do eat again just because you may have binged earlier. Um, and then we have making changes in verbal communication towards oneself. Um, so this is important because this is cognitive, but as I said, what you think is what you act, and what you act is what you think. And if you consistently think that you are putting yourself down and that you are not enough and that the ways that you're approaching your goal are incorrect, then you're going to act that way as well. So I think it's important to act as if you were confident and that you were doing things right and that you were really kind of achieving and making and getting closer to behaviors that make you feel good about yourself and that get you closer to your goal. So through that, that attributes to your cognition as well, and then eventually it'll become a habit. Um, the third one, I believe, is coping with relapse. So this goes back to binge eating too, also her sedentary behavior, because when she eats too much or when she's overtired from work, she relapses and she doesn't move, or she eats too much, or she stress eats, or something like that. And I think behavioral therapy or behavioral strategies to get her to really understand why she's doing that and other ways to distract herself from being overtired or like sleeping or from being stressed or things like that, like reading a book or going outside for a walk. So those behaviors are not easy because she may be used to eating when she's stressed, but they are achievable, and through the consequences she sees, through those changing behaviors, she will begin to do them more often because she'll see that they have a better outcome than stress eating or never working out. Um, Next is small changes in increasing physical activity. So in her case, this is actually um, pretty easy because she works with children. So we discussed moving more, taking them on more walks, going on bike rides with them, not just watching them. So she'll be increasing her physical activity by just getting more steps in and getting more bike rides in and stuff like that. Um, and we're actually both really excited about that, so that's great. And then last is maintenance, and maintenance is important in both behavioral and cognitive, as I said. Um, we want to make sure that Amy is really enjoying the new behaviors that she acquires, and I want to make sure that we really acknowledge what the behaviors are and don't just loosely let her act however she wants. Because sometimes you may lose track of that with time and you don't even remember how you got to where you are right now. You don't remember where you started and where you are right now. So as I said, verbal affirmation, stuff like that, really keeping track of those goals and the process that gets you to those goals is very important. So, in conclusion, I based her information off of the social cognitive theory, as I said, and I based our strategy intervention on cognitive behavioral therapy. I chose this theory over other um, theories and strategies due to her goal of weight loss, her facilitators, and her barriers. Um, and so I really wanted to focus on her social life and her cognition and her environment because those are the things that are most important to her. And when you really change the things that are most important to you, you really start to see a difference in your life. And the goal of behavior change is to see difference in the way you feel and the way you think, and in this case, the way she looks and progresses. So, as long as these behaviors and goals are achievable and maintainable and enjoyable, I believe that this would be perfect for her. Thank you.